Well, I went to what was the Magnus Grammar School, and it was always, and still is to an extent, a big rugby playing school. It's the same school that Dusty went through, and I was introduced to it as I would have been done at the time as a 11, 12-year-old, and it just went from there really.
As a flanker?
No, I started off as a prop, a second row, jack of all trades at the time.
But as a forward rather than a back?
Yeah. Well, I was 16 stone and about 6'1" at the time, and that's when I moved into the school. So
that's as good a reason.
They decided it for me, I think. Yeah.
And you came to Loughborough University then, but before you actually came to the county, you obviously had heard of the Tigers, had you? Perhaps through Dusty more than anything?
Yeah. Well, the way that went was, whilst I was at school, certainly in my senior years, I played for Newark Rugby Club, and certainly on one Sunday, I can clearly remember it. We played the Moderns in the Notts Cup, and I'd be about 18 at the time, and Dusty and Chalky White came along, and I had a good game. We won the match, and Chalky and Dusty then came up and had a chat with me, and they suggested, look, whatever you're going to do, think about going to the Tigers to further your rugby career. I also wanted to go to university, and given the fact that I wanted to do sports science or sport related course, one thing led to another. I ended up going to Loughborough being on the doorstep of Leicester, and the two just collided.
And of course Loughborough's got such a great reputation for sport anyway, hasn't it? You're not the only Tigers player to have gone to Loughborough University, and the athletics side is obviously very well known worldwide, isn't it?
Well, that's right. I mean, while I was there, there was Andy Robinson, who subsequently went on to play for England and the British Lions, Dave Edgerton, another England player, John Morrison, who was an England A player, and others that I all lived with for a couple of years. So we had a good time while we were there, and obviously our careers as individuals have progressed since then.
What do you remember about your first day at Welford Road?
I remembered getting changed in the old changing rooms and walking over to Nelson Mandela Park, and we trained on there, and I think at the time it was the senior squad had just gone to Zimbabwe, or were just going to Zimbabwe, so a lot of the then big name players weren't about, and it was just a very low-key session in that regard.
So at that time, we're talking about some of the great Tigers players who were playing in the side, the likes of Clive Woodward, Les Cusworth, and Dusty Hare and so on. So it must have been almost a boyhood dream come true to be able to go along and train with them, let alone go on to play alongside some of them.
Yes, it was, because 6 months previously, I mean, I'd got no ambition really to play for Leicester. My sole ambition then was to play for Newark, as it was, and then to get to university. The fact that within this short space of time I was now training with what was at the time household stars, internationals, it was a massive experience.
And there have obviously been key figures in your playing career who've had an influence on you, but you mentioned one name that most Tigers players of your generation talk about, and that's Chalky White, who's been an influence on so many internationals and otherwise over their playing careers, and perhaps one of the great coaches.
I remember best about Chalky was the day I played my first game for the Tigers, and I'd been called up at late notice to play against Harlequins on the Saturday, and it was the Friday night, and obviously 18 as I was at the time, I turned up for the game. It was at Twickenham. I was very nervous given the surroundings, the people I was playing with and everything else. He could tell that, and he came up and had a long chat, and he noticed my hair was a lot longer than what it normally is now, and it was all over the front of my face, and I can distinctly remember him in front of everybody else getting the scissors and going, just taking a great lump of my hair off the front of my face. And at the time it just had a really relaxing effect, and it just killed the nerves, and it was a great day.
Ian Smith, of course, was probably the flanker. Was he open side flanker at the time?
Yeah, I think Ian played that day, myself played, and I think Duncan Black was number 8, yes. And
the great names have always got involved with the club after the event as well.
I'm a great believer in that you forge a team out of spirit and not necessarily out of talent, and I think the times that we have won important games, we've won it because we've been a good family club, and people have gritted and grunted and got the results we wanted both on and off the pitch.
And what about the characters that you've played alongside over the years? Les Cusworth, for instance, although perhaps you wouldn't have had so much dealing with him on the pitch, but there have been some great characters, haven't there, at the club over the years?
You say that about Les, but Les and I were often coming to blows.
Yeah. Give us the ball, John. Yeah.
We were in Vale at the time on tour, and Les was up to his usual tricks. We were having a game of touch. It was touch to start with, but Les was making everybody look like monkeys. and it suddenly came from touch to contact, and Les ended up getting a rough tackle from me and ended up smacking me, and I ended up smacking Les, and ever since then we've been the worst of friends.
And what about the most memorable moments? I mentioned the Pilkington Cup in '93 when you lifted the trophy as captain. That has to be one of the highlights. But what about during the games as well? Any particular highlights for you?
I must admit, the actual final whistle of that Pilkington Cup final in '93, I can remember that moment, in fact, probably more than actually lifting the cup, given the fact it was the first thing we'd won for a number of years on a big stage in front of a big audience. That moment itself was perhaps greater than lifting the cup. But one of my favourite games, funny enough, was the day we beat Bristol, and that was in a cup match many years ago, and Bristol came up to Tigers with an all-powerful, all-threatening side, and on the day we played a marvellous game of rugby and beat them something like 44 points to 4. I say it just sticks out because the quality on the rugby on that day, superb.
Thank you so much for listening to this interview. If you enjoyed it, please click on the like button and ring that notification bell. And there are many more to listen to on this channel, so make sure you subscribe if you possibly can. Thank you.